Good evening. We bring you the latest in the world of sports. I'm Paulo Del Rosario.
We give you the conversations you want to hear from your favorite icons and athletes. I'm Danny Ravenna. In tonight's game plan, Morocco Bolts head coach Norman Black joins us as to share his team's preparation for the upcoming PBA 46th season. We'll also get his thoughts on the return of Coach Chot Reyes for the TNT and Coach Chris Gavina's head coaching debut for Rain or Shine. Volleyball is definitely back. We'll catch up with the Spiking Queens, Ate Michele Gumabao and Ate Jaja Santiago, as they prepare for the much-anticipated return of the Premier Volleyball League.
And we get a special exclusive with WWE superstar Drew McIntyre as he shares a story behind his legendary Claymore and up-and-coming dream matches to watch out for in the WWE. Buckle up, sports fans. Let's get in the game. Now, who would have thought just last week we had no assurance of the PBA's timeline to return in the near future? But here we are, just 3 days away from the opening of the PBA's 46th season. We all know how excited us fans can get, but I'm pretty sure the PBA coaches and players themselves are charged up as well for the upcoming games. Now, joining us tonight is one of those charged up coaches. I love that term. Once again, leading the way for the Morocco Bolts, Coach Norman Black. Coach, how are you doing?
Good evening, Coach Norman.
Coach, I think you may be on mute here.
Yes.
There you are.
Good evening to Paulo.
Well, you know, Coach Norman, first of all, the PBA is finally coming back, and the fact of the matter is you guys have been training for a very long time with no date in sight, but now the date is finally set. And has that changed the way that you guys have started preparing, started training? Have things ramped up or changed in any way?
Well, we had a lot of time to train, I think about 6 weeks. So from the Morocco standpoint, you know, everything's in place already. We're starting to focus in on little things like out of bounds plays and in the quarter plays and, you know, trick defenses, just so we're prepared for just about everything. We still don't know the schedule, so we're not sure when we're actually going to play the games, but we're pretty much ready at this point.
Well, of course, Coach Norman, this bubble has been very different for you and, of course, the team. I was just curious, since you're with, of course, my good friend Aaron, has it been fun or a bit stressful with him inside the bubble as you?
Well, we've been traveling for the last couple of weeks to Batangas every day for practice, so it's been a little bit tough. So it's nice to have somebody to ride along with me on the trips. It's about a 5-hour round trip every day. So we're staying in Batangas right now, preparing for the game on hopefully on Friday. Hopefully we'll have a chance to play on Friday. And it's nice having Aaron around. It's nice to have somebody to talk to when you're taking that long drive.
Well, you know, Coach, again, I apologize for the last time you were in a bubble in Ilocos. I know I may have given you sleepless nights. But considering that you are now in Batangas, going back and forth, and not a lot of teams were as lucky as you to be in a bubble before, knowing what other teams are going through right now, what does that say about the commitment of all of these PBA teams who are just trying to make things work and make sure that they're all ready for the start of the new season?
Well, we thank the management for sending us to Lawag City twice, actually, to be able to train there for a couple of weeks and actually for about 4 weeks. And then we've been going back and forth here in Batangas. We actually see the other teams here in Batangas. They practice before us and after us. It's a little bit difficult, I'm not going to lie to you, traveling every day to practice for 2.5 hours. But at the same time, it's what's needed to stay ready. We were not aware of when we were going to get started. So at least at this point right now, we are pretty much in shape. And hopefully we're prepared for the season. My only problem, Paul, is that we haven't played anybody.
Yeah.
We're only playing against each other. So I know we look good against each other, but I'm not sure how we're going to look against other teams.
Well, you know, you brought up a great point there, Coach, especially when it comes to the fact that you don't have any really tune-up games. How do you think your team's going to get that game sharpness, or as sharp as they can get going into the season?
No, at this point, I think that you just have to trust your training, you trust your preparation, and you go out and play. And you see what the other team has. There's no sense worrying about the fact that you can't play an exhibition game if it's not really there. So just have to get out there on the court. Anyway, all the teams are in the same situation. Nobody has an advantage over any other team. So you just get out there and play.
Talking about advantages, Coach Norman, how are the newcomers such as Alvin Pasaol and Macbello adjusting to your system?
Mac Bello has really adjusted very, very well. He's a good player. He's going to help us a lot this year.
Yeah.
He's been playing the power forward position for us in practice. He can play some threes, so that's going to be very, very helpful. We can even move Chris Hodge to the 5 sometimes because Mac Bello can really stretch the floor. So I'm expecting him to be a big addition to the team. In the case of Alvin, he's still trying to get into the flow, trying to get himself into great shape, learning the system. He's only been with us for 3 weeks now. Remember, he was with the national team, so he did not join us immediately. And then he had a protocol problem, so that also set him back a little bit. But he's getting there. He's getting better every day.
Well, Coach, it's going to be a really challenging season considering the fact that you mentioned the lack of preparation and all of that. But then even from a coaching standpoint, you got a couple of new challengers, some of them old challengers to the crown. You have obviously Coach Chot Reyes with TNT Tropang Giga and Coach Chris Gavina for Rain or Shine. When I know you've seen them before, you played against them before. Could you give us your thoughts on just how, basically what they bring to the table in the PBA, considering their experience and their enthusiasm this time around?
In the case of Coach Chris for Rain or Shine, he's been around for a while. He's coached in the PBA, he's coached in the MPBL. He's been a very veteran coach as far as being able to coach teams here in the country. So I'm expecting he's going to come in. His teams are normally very defensive oriented. They play very, very good defense. So that's what I'm expecting from the Rain or Shine team. They led the league in defense last year anyway, so
yeah,
that's something you can really build on. And at the same time, Coach Chot Reyes, I think everybody knows who he is. A decorated coach, many-time coach of the year, former national team coach. I actually have more of a history with Coach Chot than I do against him, because the time that he was coaching, I was actually in the amateur ranks with the Ateneo Blue Eagles. But I was actually part of his team as a consultant for 3 of the 4 championships he won with Talking Tech. So I'm happy that Coach Chot is back. I'm happy he's back in the picture again.
So, Coach Norman, I asked you a while ago about the rookies. Now for the veterans, such as Reynel Hugnatan, how has the veterans been adjusting and also keeping up with the new talents in Meralco Bolts?
Reynel's doing quite well. He made a move today that I've never seen him make before. He double pumped coming down the lane, and I just looked at him like, we had a day off yesterday. I said we should take more days off, because if he's going to make moves like that. So he's been playing very, very well. He's a very youthful 41 years old, and we're expecting he's still going to be part of our rotation. He's still going to help us out, particularly when it comes to stretching the floor. My other veterans are back. Of course, Chris Newsom, who I consider probably our best player, is back with us. And a guy who's really, really stepped up in practice, who I'm expecting a lot from, is Bong Kinto. I mean, he has been playing really, really well in practice, so I'm really expecting he's going to help us a lot this year.
Coach, your assessment of your team, because again, looking at it on paper at least, the talent is probably one of the more powerful, some of the more loaded teams that you've had coaching the Meralco Bolts.
Well, that's the point. It's one of the more loaded teams that I've had, but when you compare it to some of the other teams in the league, you still see that the San Miguels and the Ginebras and the Talking Techs and the Magnolias are still probably talent-wise a little bit ahead. But we certainly have improved our team with the additions of Alvin Pasol, Mac Bello, and also Noi Bacalao. We think those guys will come in and really help us a great deal. So I feel, personally as the coach, that we have a stronger team this year, but also you have to understand that some of the other teams also got stronger during the break. So we have to find out what happens on the court.
Coach, we're all excited to see what will happen. The PBA is starting very, very, very soon. And unfortunately, I know that means that we'll probably have you less here on the show because you're going to be busy coaching your team. But that's okay. We'll watch you on TV. We'll watch you on PBA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach Norman, for joining us. Thank you. When we return, as we catch up with the spiking queens, Michele Gumabao and Jaja Santiago, live from Ilocos Norte. Keep it here. You're watching The Game. Welcome back to the game alongside Paolo De Rosario. I'm Danny Ravenna. Filipino volleyball fans just can't wait for the weekend as the Premier Volleyball League begins on July 17. The PBL opens an explosive triple header on Saturday. Cherry Tigo and PLDT will be giving the first serve, followed by Perlas versus Signal. Opening day concludes with the much-anticipated face-off between Santa Lucia and Creamline. Sunday will surely get an ace in the hearts of volleyball fans as Petrogas and Black Mamba Army face off first, followed by Chocomucho versus Ballypure at 6 p.m. Tonight, two queens join us live to share the excitement for the upcoming PBL season. And we have, of course, binibining volleyball, Michele Gumabao, and the Pinay Tower, Jaja Santiago. Ate MG and Ate Jaja, welcome to the game.
Hi guys!
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi po!
All right, Danny, get us going here.
So Ate MG and Ate Jaja, of course, as a volleyball fan myself, I'm very curious, how is it there sa volleyball bubble nyo na nagkikita-kita na kayo? Nagiging mas exciting na ba as PBL comes closer day by day?
Michelle, let's start with you.
Nagkikita-kita kami ng mga ibang teams pero magkakalayo lang because napaka-strict yung protocols. You know, we can't roam around the vicinity. We're just limited to our rooms and practice. So we still have to follow all the rules kahit na we've tested so many times and quarantine just for the safety of everyone and for the safety of the whole bubble. But it's good to see na matutuloy na. Medyo kinakabahan pa kami nung una when we found out that Lawag was going to be put under ECQ again. So it's finally here. Ito nga pinaghirapan namin for the past couple of months and sobrang saya na matutuloy na yung PBL.
Jaja, I remember when you first came back and you actually did the national team tryout, sabi mo na sobrang excited ka to actually reconnect with some of your former teammates and actually current teammates rather. But then now seeing the entire volleyball community come together in Lawag, kamusta naman yan? How does that feel for you in particular?
Actually, mas lalong nakaka-excite kasi nga yun na, nandito kami lahat na sa Lawag. Nagkikita-kita na kami ng mga teams na makakalaban namin. Pero unfortunately, hindi nga kami pwedeng mag-roam around dito. And yun nga, limited lang yung pagpunta namin. Actually, yung ibang teammates din namin, hindi namin nakikita kasi hindi rin kami, ewan ko, hindi kami pwedeng pumunta sa room nila. As in, room lang namin and then training. Pero kahit ganon, nakaka-excite pa rin kasi syempre, ito na yung pinakihintay ng lahat. After 1 year and a half, ata, na walang volleyball, magkakaroon na tayo. At the same time, na magtatapat-tapat na yung mga teams na hindi natin nakikitang nagkakalaban before.
You know, actually, Jaja, that brings up something that exciting that we're going to do later. Pero abangan nyo yan. But before that, Danny, nakita natin sa mga stories nila actually about that the community feeling being built up. I'm sure nakita mo yun, no?
Yes, of course. More so, as a volleyball player myself, syempre, naiinggit at na-excited kami at the same time to see you guys play. So, I just want to ask sa inyo, Ate Jaja and Ate MG, how has it been when the adjustment and the changes in training and also, syempre, before hindi tayo naka-face-to-face at home with Zoom trainings, but now na nagkikita, how has it been, the emotions, or is it rising na talaga and the excitement as well?
Michelle, let's start with you.
I think yung nag-rise yung pagod din eh. Yes, nandun yung excitement, yung mawawala yun. But, you know, at this point of my career, yun hindi tayo mga bata, Danny, kaya nga Ate MG na ako. Pero ang nahirapan ako personally coming back after a year and a half of being on break is yung twice a day training na akala ko hindi ko na may experience in my life. So, I was flashed back all the way to college na sabi ko, shucks, ganito na pala kahirap ulit yung volleyball. Medyo doon ako nahirapan mag-adjust. And, you know, being away from family, being away from work, ang daming sacrifices talaga. But the more sacrifices, the more passion comes out. And yung tiyaga mo talaga, and yung bonding namin as a team, mas lalong tumatag. And Kaya alam namin na pagpasok namin ng PBL, all the more hungry because mas marami ka talagang sinakripisyo for this bubble. Pero grabe talaga yung intensity ng practice. I'm sure kilala nyo naman si Coach Tai. Kahit Zoom lang kami nagpa-practice, hindi pa rin nagbabago yung quality ng training. And nakakatuwa lang because lahat ng volleyball players ngayon, they're all hungry to play. They're all really eager to play. So kahit masakit katawan, kahit injured, kahit naninibago lahat, it's really everybody coming together just to make this league and this sport work again.
Michelle, don't age yourself, ha? Kasi magka-age lang tayo, eh. So, really, sitting beside Danny here, it makes me feel things as well. Pero, Jaja, I'll go to you next. So, actually, on the, talking about preparation as well, you actually are the most game fit kasi because of your recent experience in Japan. Do you see that in your teammates, yung gigil, yung excitement to get ready to go back onto the court finally after a very long time, a year and a half?
Wait lang. Agree ako kay Ate Michelle. Yung mas tumataas yung pagod kaysa dun. Kasi after nga ng 1 year and a half, dun lang nakapagbola, ganyan. Actually, yung team namin, nung wala pa ako, nag-training sila sa Batangas, pero na-cut kasi nga bumalik ulit ng ECQ tama ba? ECQ sa Manila. And other, sa Batangas, Cavite, ganyan. So, bumalik sila. So, ngayon, nagkaroon kami ng Zoom training and then balik ulit ng conditioning. Nagsama-sama kami.
Yeah.
So, parang, sobrang hirap kasi hindi namin alam kung matutuloy ba talaga tong PBL. Hindi namin alam kung may mangyayari. Pero yung mga teammates ko, makikita mo, sa amin lahat, makikita mo naman na talagang willing na makuha yung goal.
Yeah.
Kahit medyo malabo. Pero nakikita mo yung passionate lahat talaga mag-training. Ako naman, hindi ko masabi na ako yung pinaka-kondisyon. Kasi nung dumating din ako dito, natigil din ako mag-training, walang bola.
Yeah.
More on conditioning talaga, strengthening, weight, yan. Puro ganon. Pero syempre, dahil siguro may experience na din, hindi naman mawawala sa, kumbaga, muscle memory natin yung volleyball. So tingin ko, nandoon, magiging okay yung laro natin sa PBL, hopefully. Hopefully.
Yes, Ate Jaja and Ate MD, to make this more exciting, we'll do a reverse report. So we have on our first game, Charitigo versus PLDT. So for you, Ate Jaja, can you give any advice on...
Yeah, so actually, let's clarify that, all right? So the two of you are now playing teams that you haven't played in a very long time. So we're gonna ask you to scout each other's opponent. So let's just help each other out here.
Tulangan today.
Jaja, first of all, si MG will be playing Santa Lucia, who
Santa
honestly you're familiar with in comparison. If you're going to scout Santa Lucia for her, how would you do it? What would you say?
Kung i-scout ko yung Santa Lucia, kasi halos sila ng veteran and mga baguhan din. Tama ba yung term ko? Pero like Ate Aiza Maiso, Yeye, Palomata, I think magiging laban ng blockings to. Kasi kahit sila sa cream line, malakas din, blocking team din sila. Well, offensive. Ang hirap i-scout, ang hirap. Pero I think una kong uunahin si Nang Aiza because of her experience. Kailangan ma-stop or mapigilan yung... Malikot kasi pumalo si Nang Aiza. So, mostly, kumbaga, kung ako yung setter, gamitin ko si Nang Aiza para mag-score.
Okay, so actually, abangan ko yan tuloy. Oo.
So, Ate MG, for you naman, since sila Ate Jaja, they're going against PLDT, what advice can you give? Especially na sila talaga yung first game this weekend.
I think yung matchup kasi namin ni Jaja with the teams that we're going up against, pareho kaming nasa yung wala kaming alam tungkol sa kabilang team because Santa Lucia, although they're a old team, bago yung mga players nila, so bagong combination yan. With PLDT naman, matagal din sila in and out sa volleyball scene. So, hindi mo rin talaga mabasa kung ano yung ipapakita nila ngayon, lalo na ang tagal namin lahat na pahinga. But I think for both our teams, especially for Cherry Tigo and sina Jaja, it's all about adjustment. Yung kung sino talaga unang maka-adjust after the first set, kung sino unang makabasa, yun talaga yung makakapagpakita or makakapag-control ng laro. So the thing with PLDT kasi, although andun si Ate Rhea, no, Ja? Siya yung setter.
Opo, nandun.
So,
Yes.
veteran setter. Pero yung mga kakampi kasi niya, mostly bata. Oo, mostly. Well, compared to our age.
Just stop bringing age into this, MG!
Sila yung mga hindi ko masyadong naabutan ng college. So, yung mga, andun siguro yung speed, nandun yung kondisyon, dahil nga, mas fresh pa sila from college. So, yun lang. Bantayan lang talaga yung distribution ng bola ng setter and tapat-tapat lang talaga. And Cherry Tigo is a tall team. So, kung ma-establish nila yung block nila against PLDT, it will stop their hitters.
MG, 108 ka sa Lasal, na?
Ha?
108? 09? Okay, just making sure.
09.
Just making sure. Again, MG, Jaja, thank you very much for joining us here today. We're so excited to see you finally play, and I'm sure all the fans are as well. So we'll see you on the court, finally. Finally, thank you. Okay, so after the break, WWE superstar Drew McIntyre will join us to talk about dream matches and the origin of his world-famous Claymore. Stay tuned. You're watching the game. Few WWE superstars have had as much impact during the Thunderdome era as Drew McIntyre. The two-time WWE Champion's comeback in 2020 marked a new chapter for his legacy, featuring title runs and a main event at WrestleMania. Our correspondent Carlo Pamintuan sat down with the king of Claymore country himself in this latest edition of Inside the Game.
We are now with WWE superstar Drew McIntyre. Drew, I know you're a very busy man, so thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for speaking to me. I'm excited.
Drew, we all know that they say that WWE superstars are just versions of themselves, but with the volume turned way up. How close are you to your in-ring persona, to the guy that's outside?
I am pretty bang on the same person as Drew McIntyre you see on television. Perhaps sometimes the volume's turned up a little bit when I'm on TV, but sometimes in real life, I'm just exactly that person. I think the thing that helped me connect with fans, I was never really relatable until about the beginning of 2020 when I started making a connection with fans. I was always big and hairy and Scottish and angry. No one can relate to that except the big, hairy, Scottish, angry guy. But finally, I had a chance to be myself on the microphone. And we've seen, especially recent weeks, but over the past year and a half, I can be serious, but I can also be silly and goofy and sarcastic and tell ridiculous stories, tell dad jokes that aren't funny. But everybody knows when the bell rings, I kick butt. And I think that made me more relatable and spoke to people. And I could hear it in the arenas when we had the fans still were about to have again. They started picking up, the volume in the arena started picking up every single week when they realized, hey, he might be, larger than life and Scottish, but he's just like us. He's ridiculous. He tells silly jokes, and he's a big, big wrestling fan, obviously.
Is there pressure on yourself that you put on yourself to keep raising the bar? Because, every time we see you out there, it just keeps getting more brutal and more brutal.
Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And it's not so much pressure, it's just I want to make sure every time I go out there, everybody knows if they're watching Drew McIntyre in a WWE match, it doesn't matter if it's a pay-per-view or it's a Raw or soon to be a live event, you're going to get everything that I've got. That it's going to be very physical. And you're going to hopefully find yourself getting lost in it. Like, wait a minute, are they beating each other up for real here? Do they like each other? That's what it's all about when it comes to a Drew McIntyre match. It doesn't matter who my opponent is. People can have an opinion of some of the people I wrestle. Like, oh, this guy's not always the best. When they wrestle me, I'm going to make sure you see a side of them they've never seen. Because quite frankly, as hard as I hit them, they're fighting for their life.
Drew, for example, we saw the pictures of what happened to your body after that last matchup with Bobby Lashley. How long does it usually take you to recover from something as tough as that matchup?
I mean, I've been wrestling for 21 years, so you're never fully recovered. I guess that's another positive of this time is my body's had a chance to take a breather from all the damage I've done throughout my entire career. But when it comes to a match with that level of physicality, especially Hell in a Cell with like a Bobby Lashley, the only thing I took comfort in was knowing he was probably more pain than me after that match. But yeah, I had to wrestle Riddle the next night, and Riddle's very, very physical himself. We did over 20 minutes, so I was certainly feeling it the next day. I felt it for the next week, and then it starts kind of easing back up. I think my body's so used to it, and I don't really know any better. Like, this is all I've ever done. That's kind of normal to me.
Your finisher, the Claymore, is one of the very best in the WWE today. Can you run us through the process behind your invention of it and the evolution of that move, if there was any?
Yes, I've been telling this story a couple of times today, but I love telling it every single time. So the Claymore was invented by accident. The reason, you remember 3MB? I used to be in the fake rock group that had tight leather pants, like a 1980s rock group, like Motley Crue or Poison or something, tight leather pants. So I didn't realize that would affect my wrestling ability. So I went to run to kick my opponent in the face during a match. I realized live on Raw, just like it's going to be in the Philippines soon live, my crotch was going to split in my tights. So I was going to be embarrassed live on television. So when I brought my right leg up, I decided to kick my left leg up to make sure the crotch didn't split. I kicked my opponent in the face, knocked myself silly, and the agent Finley in the back told me, if you can figure out how to do that without hurting yourself, you've got a maneuver. And I kept developing it. It was my secondary finish to the Future Shock DDT. And my time away from WWE, it started working its way to the front, and I started perfecting it to the point where people were saying, that's clearly your finishing move. And it overtook the Future Shock and became my finish by the time I returned to WWE.
Can you name any other superstar from any brand who you'd like to test also inside the ring?
I mean, there's so many people that I want to compete with across the board in WWE. It's the thing now, these days, like, there's never been such a high level of in-ring talent in the history of WWE than there is now. You look across Raw, SmackDown, NXT, be it from a technical standpoint, a power standpoint, a high-flying standpoint, we have the best of the best, and I could look at every roster and say, I want that guy, I want that guy, I want that guy. So it's impossible to single people out, like who I'd really want a match with. But like Riddle and I just wrestled recently. He's an up-and-comer on Raw. I'm focused on Raw right now since that's my show. And Damian Priest and I have never wrestled. So there we go. There's somebody I've never got in the ring with from Raw that I'd like to get in there with. And eventually, for everyone out there, Roman Reigns and I will tangle again. So I know that's the answer we're looking for.
Very excited for all those matchups. Drew, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Danny Ravenna.
I'm Paul Del Rosario. This has been The Game.